bookstore at the corner of Maple Street had a strange way of calling people inside. It wasn't flashy, nor did it have the latest bestsellers on display. Instead, its wooden sign creaked in the wind, whispering to those who happened to walk by. One rainy evening, Amelia found herself standing outside the store, staring at the foggy window. The dim light inside flickered, casting long shadows across the cobbled pavement. Had passed by this place 100 times, but never stepped in. That night, though, something felt different. The warm glow inside seemed to pull her in, and before she knew it, her fingers were on the old brass handle. Pushing the door open, a small bell jingled. Its sound soft and delicate, as if announcing her arrival in a space where time moved slower. The air smelled of aged paper, a mix of vanilla and dust. Shelves stood tall, reaching the ceiling, filled with books whose spines had stories of their own. Some looked untouched for decades, while others had frayed edges. Pages curled from countless readings died. An old man sat behind the counter, flipping through a leather-bound book. He wore round spectacles that seemed too large for his thin face. When he noticed Amelia, he offered a slow, knowing smile. "Welcome," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Looking for something special, Amelia hesitated. She wasn't sure why she had walked in. "Just looking," she murmured, running her fingers along the nearest shelf. The books hummed beneath her touch as if they recognized her presence. Then she saw it, a book with a cover unlike any other, deep blue, almost black, with no title. It seemed to shimmer under the dim light. She pulled it out carefully. The edges were smooth, untouched by time. The old man's smile widened. "Ah," he said, nodding slightly. "That one chooses its reader." Amelia opened the book, expecting words. Instead, the pages were blank, but as she turned them, faint whispers filled the air. The words weren't written, they were spoken, weaving a story only she could hear. It was her own story, memories she had forgotten, moments she thought lost. The laughter of a childhood friend, the scent of her grandmother's baking, the feeling of cool grass under her feet on a summer evening. Her breath caught. Ow! The old man closed his book and leaned forward. Some stories aren't meant to be read, but remembered. She looked back at the pages. With every turn, a new whisper surfaced, leading her deeper into the past. She saw the park where she had fallen and scraped her knee. Candlelit birthday cake when she turned 7. The night she stayed up late watching the stars, dreaming about the future. Time faded. The rain outside had stopped. The store was silent except for the rhythmic ticking of an old clock on the wall. Amelia lost herself in the book, feeling the warmth of long-forgotten moments wrap around her. She wasn't sure how much time had passed when she finally closed the book. The whispers faded. The old man was watching her, his expression gentle. "It's yours now," he said. Amelia held the book close. She understood now. Some stories didn't need ink, they needed to be felt. She glanced at the shelves around her, wondering how many other books held the echoes of memories waiting to be heard. For the quiet thank you, she stepped outside. The sky had cleared, stars twinkling above the quiet street. The book felt warm in her hands, like a heartbeat. As she walked home, she listened to the pages, each whisper reminding her that stories never truly fade, they just wait to be found again. The clock in Evelyn's room ticked softly, a gentle rhythm that blended with the sound of raindrops tapping against the window. It was late, and the world outside was wrapped in darkness. But Evelyn wasn't asleep. She sat at her desk, tracing circles on the wooden surface, her mind drifting between reality and dreams. A flicker of light caught her attention. A small golden glow, barely the size of a firefly, danced in the corner of her room. Evelyn blinked, thinking it was a trick of her tired eyes, but the glow remained. It floated near her bookshelf, weaving between the spines of old books as if searching for something curious. She stood up and reached out. The glow darted away, playfully flickering in the dim room. It hovered near a book she hadn't touched in years, a worn-out leather journal, given to her by her grandmother. She hesitated before pulling it off the shelf. The cover felt warm, almost alive, as if it had been waiting for her touch. Slowly, she opened it. Instead of pages, there was darkness, vast and endless, stretching far beyond the limits of the book. A soft breeze slipped through, carrying whispers, gentle voices calling her name. Evelyn's heart pounded. Without thinking, she leaned closer, and before she could react, she was falling. The sensation was light, weightless, like drifting through a dream. Stars shimmered around her, twinkling softly in the inky blackness. She landed gently on what seemed like a glassy surface, ripples forming beneath her feet. Before her stood a door, ancient and wooden, with carvings that glowed faintly in the dark. She stepped forward, pushing it open. Beyond the door was a place she knew, yet had never seen before. A meadow bathed in golden light stretched before her, flowers swaying without wind. In the distance stood a house, her grandmother's house. It was just as she remembered, from the creaky porch to the ivy creeping up its sides. Approached cautiously, feeling both at home and utterly lost. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the air smelled of cinnamon and old books. She stepped in and heard a familiar hum, a tune her grandmother used to sing while baking. The warmth of nostalgia wrapped around her, and for a moment she forgot everything else. On the wooden table sat the same leather journal she had opened earlier, but now its pages weren't empty. Words formed on their own, ink blooming across the parchment like vines. Memories never fade, they just wait to be found. Evelyn reached out, tracing the words. As she did, the world around her shimmered, breaking apart like fragments of a dream. The golden glow returned, circling her like a firefly. It guided her back, pulling her gently until she was no longer in the house, no longer in the metal dot. With a gasp, she sat up at her desk, the journal still in her hands. The rain had stopped. The clock continued its steady ticking as if nothing had changed. But Evelyn knew better. The glow was gone, but the warmth remained, nestled in her chest. She opened the journal again. The pages were filled, written in a handwriting she hadn't seen in years, her grandmother's, a collection of memories, stories, and messages left just for her. She smiled, running her fingers over the ink. Some doors, once open, never truly close. The town of Ashmere had a secret, one that only a few ever discovered. It was hidden beneath layers of time, waiting for the right soul to stumble upon it. Lena had always been drawn to the old bridge at the edge of town. As a child, she would sit by the water, tossing pebbles into the stream, watching the ripples spread. The bridge had stood there for centuries, its wooden planks worn but strong. No one ever spoke about it much. It was just part of the landscape, forgotten by most, but not by Lena. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she walked to the bridge again. The air was thick with the scent of rain, though the sky remained clear. Something felt different. The moment she stepped onto the first wooden plank, a faint hum echoed beneath her feet. She hesitated, listening. The hum grew stronger, like a whisper in the wind. She took another step. The bridge, old as it was, shimmered under the fading light. It was then she saw it, carvings on the railing she had never noticed before. Symbols, intertwined like vines, glowing faintly. She traced them with her fingers, feeling the grooves. A gust of wind swept through, and suddenly the world around her shifted. The air felt lighter, charged with an energy she couldn't explain. When she looked up, the town was gone. In its place stood a forest unlike any she had ever seen. Trees with silver leaves stretched toward a sky painted in twilight hues. The stream beneath the bridge glowed softly, its surface reflecting constellations that didn't belong to her world. Lena's heart pounded. She turned, expecting to see the way back, but the bridge had changed. It was no longer worn with age, but whole, as if time had reversed itself. Footsteps echoed in the distance. She wasn't alone. A figure emerged from the trees, cloaked in shadows yet familiar. As they stepped closer, the glow of the stream illuminated their face. It was her grandmother, young, just as she had appeared in old photographs. "You found it," her grandmother whispered, a smile playing on her lips. "I always knew you would." Lena's breath caught. "What is this place?" Her grandmother reached out, placing a warm hand on hers. A memory, a secret, a choice. The wind picked up, rustling the silver leaves. Lena felt the hum beneath her feet again, stronger this time, pulling her back. The bridge trembled, the world blurred, and then she was standing in Ashmere once more, the town untouched by the passage of time. The bridge was just a bridge again, but in her palm a single silver leaf rested, cool against her skin. Some places exist between moments, waiting for those who listen, and some journeys never truly end.